Well, the first question is an obvious one. How are you doing? We are in good spirits. Morale is high. We're ready to fight and work. Our team is determined to succeed in their work and ultimately help us win this war. So we're doing our best. However, what is happening today to our cities, to our friends, families, and relatives is outrageous. We're monitoring the situation closely. With each passing day, as you can see, the things get more and more aggravated on the front lines. And if earlier there was selective shelling, today, unfortunately, more and more civilians are being bombed. Houses, peaceful structures, which have absolutely no value for strategic purposes. People are being killed. Children are being killed. There is looting. This war is showing everyone its ugly face. How are you doing personally? What is it like to find yourself in this situation? Of course, as a vice president of the nuclear power plant, but also as a person, as a Ukrainian citizen. Today, I probably exist more than ever in all three capacities: as a Ukrainian, as a plant's VP, and as a person. I understand who I am. I understand that I'm a manager, and I'm well aware that people are turning to me for guidance. So most times, if not all the time, I have to stay collected to keep my emotions inside. There are many challenges today for me in all three of these capacities. First and foremost, we have to generate electricity here in the war rear. And this is the ultimate goal of our team today. The second goal is the morale of our people. We're working real hard to achieve that. I try to give a lot of speeches, encouragements, because people, especially women, are worried. They watch TV, they're terrified, afraid that sooner or later the bombings and shooting are going to hit us too. That's why supplying the right information is extremely important today. And since our company has very strong ties to our town, we cooperate a lot with the town's authorities, provide support for volunteer activities, and help the military. Many of our colleagues work to help maintain public order through the volunteer movement. Women are helping out a lot. These are our focus areas at the moment on that front. And then there is communication lines with the community, the city authorities, and the plant. Maintaining and developing them is a priority. You organize humanitarian aid, I was told, and have sent it 14 times. Yes, we have sent humanitarian aid to Ukrainians in need many times, and will continue to do it. We do our best to provide the safety of our people. It is also important. That's why we've been working very hard on security. To address the airborne alerts, we opened our new shelters with good conditions to accommodate women and the elderly people. Here in Varash, yes, in Varash, we have organized both medical care and other necessary care. There is enough work for everyone. I understand that you have some 7,500 employees at the plant. Have many of them joined the armed forces? Yes, we have people who have been officially mobilized. That is, they were supposed to go into the service and have already joined the front lines. But if you look at the numbers and compare the number of people who were under obligation to be mobilized and the number of volunteers, then there are more volunteers. A lot of men volunteer to sign up for military action. We work with everyone on a case-by-case basis because there are some critical personnel groups that we simply can't afford to lose. Let's not forget, our primary goal here is to generate electricity. So we work with critical personnel toward that goal. We explain the situation to them as best we can. Nonetheless, the volunteer movement today remains incredibly strong. Do you get news from people who are at the war front? Are there any casualties among the locals? Thank God we have had none here so far. But yesterday we had the funeral to bury the first local hero who fell in the line of fire. Funeral, did you say? Did he die at the front lines? Yes, he did. Now we've opened our account, as most Ukrainian cities have. Do you know what happened there? No, we don't have the details at the moment. Was he a plant employee, a resident of Varash? Yes, he was a resident of our town. Of course, our friends, colleagues tried to get in touch with the front lines, but the connection is very unstable at this time. Receiving accurate information from there is often a problem. About a week ago, a man just like you, who is in charge of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, found himself a hostage as the Russian armed forces seized control of the plant. What is your understanding of what happened? How did you feel when you found out? Zaporizhzhia RNPP was attacked and captured, but it could have been any other plant. Well, it's hard. It's hard to comment on this situation right now, because I think that generally hijacking a nuclear power plant with weapons is called nuclear terrorism. When a weapon is used on site, it can hit into the wrong place, and it could damage important elements of plant safety systems and other systems, which could lead to very negative consequences for the nuclear power plant. And that is, to put it mildly. So we were extremely worried, for sure. On top of that, from a human psychology perspective, consider the plant staff trying to get their job done when you have soldiers standing over you. It's very difficult and a clear threat to nuclear safety. It's one hell of a job they face today. And of course, we're thinking about that too, and worrying a lot. It's hard to imagine how they work in those dire circumstances. Obviously, you know the director personally, don't you? Yes, of course. And is he or she in touch now? No, he's not in touch. The corporate management has limited contact with him and the plant top technical management. Do you understand why the Russian army seized not only the Zaporizhzhia plant but also the Chernobyl site? Why would they do that? Well, I can't really understand or know everything. I can only give my opinion about it. As far as Chernobyl plant goes, first, it is very close to the Belarus border. It is a very good staging ground for deployment of troops and military equipment. Not many civilians live there. In general, it is a good military base. This is probably one of the reasons. Maybe it is not the main one. Secondly, they want to take control over a number of nuclear facilities, at which the perceived probability of strong military resistance on our part is relatively low. This is because we all understand that a nuclear facility is, and in all likelihood, they want to hide their armed forces behind these facilities. Third, these are strategically important facilities for our country. Power generation plants or nuclear fuel storage facilities are strategically important to us. So one of their goals is to take over strategically important facilities and thus control our power supply. Total collapse of the power system, maybe that's what they want to do. It's hard to say at this point. In my mind, some combination of those three factors explains the hit on the Chernobyl site. Zaporizhzhia plant is the largest power plant in Europe. It is strategically important to us in terms of power lines and in terms of the entire energy grid of the country. We are now about 60 kilometers away from the border of Belarus. From a pure geographical perspective, yes, it's roughly 60 to 70 kilometers from the border of Belarus in a straight line. Tell me, there must have been a moment when you thought, where next? We think about it all the time, because the risk of an assault in the town and on the station is always there. We are prepared for that, and I always keep that possibility in mind. In terms of both military preparedness and safety preparedness, yes. So we've done a lot of adjustments, implemented a series of plans. I'm confident that the aggressor will not have any success here. The words nuclear, and even more so when combined with Ukraine, scare the world. Let's say for obvious reasons. Well, there may be several reasons, perhaps they're not justified. I would like to ask you to tell us about the risks. Which risks are real and which risks have no basis? What were you thinking when the events at the Zaporizhzhia RNPP unfolded, when it all happened? Many people thought that there would be a nuclear explosion and that we would all die. You are an expert. Do you know if there was such a risk and if this risk remains in the future? I believe there is. It primarily depends on the direct use of weapons on nuclear facilities during a takeover. And I think there are weapons that can really damage all of our physical barriers and can cause fairly serious nuclear accident. But it all depends on the use of weapons that the Russian army deploys there. The second thing is that, given the rather complicated modes of operation, technological accidents may happen also. In other words, the damage to the infrastructure of the plant that ensures the safety of the plant. If that happens, there could be rather nasty incidents at the station. I'm not sure I understand it fully. Well, let's imagine we're forced to shut down a unit, or all units. How long can our unit remain in this state? That is, how long would we have enough diesel fuel to run the diesels that power the necessary auxiliary supply systems? But this is advanced nuclear plant terminology. Just know that we are prepared for everything. We are ready to ensure safety for a certain period of time. If we exceed the requirements for the time specified in our procedures and specifications, then of course we will run into certain problems. Is it an issue of reactor cooling? Yes, absolutely right. Primary goal is the cooling of the reactor vessel. Once again, we are prepared for this, and we have everything we need to ensure safety. But with a war going on, there are a lot of military-based events that we may not foresee, that could occur. We may have a problem with those. But again, we're talking hypotheticals here. Anything could happen. But the greatest danger could be the use of a heavy weaponry in the course of a nuclear facility siege. Well, I guess you must be better prepared now than Zaporizhzhia RNPP was, because they obviously didn't expect it. Of course, they have not expected it. We had enough time to think of everything, to check everything, and address every issue we could possibly think of. Yes, we had enough time for that. Is it quiet in the town of Varash now? Are the sirens going on in the city? We have air raid alert almost every day, but so far there have been no airstrikes in or around the plant or the town. The word nuclear is associated with power plants, of course, but also with nuclear weapons. But this is a completely different threat. The same word, but a completely different meaning, right? The use of a nuclear weapon causes a huge explosion and results in an almost instant destruction of a large area. But if we consider a possible nuclear accident, a serious accident at a nuclear reactor, then we could be looking at a large-scale accident like the one at Chernobyl. Which is worse? I'm not sure. It is hard to say. I believe the use of nuclear weapons is worse in any case. But the impact is much more limited, you say? Depending on the charge. There are very serious charges, but yes, the effects are more contained. In case of a nuclear weapon hit, the destruction is almost instant. You don't have a slow developing nuclear disaster that will have lasting effects for years and years to come. In case of a severe accident at a nuclear power plant, you have to deal with the consequences all the time, for a long time. Fuel cooling, radioactive releases, and everything else. What message to the world could you give? What could you tell people about what's going on now and what people in the world should know? What is happening in our country today is unthinkable, and the vantage point really doesn't matter. Saying that we are neo-Nazis or nationalists is sometimes of incomprehensible stupidity, idiocy, and paranoia. We are, in fact, a very peaceful nation, a developing, evolving nation. Yes, we've had our problems, but to say that we should be rescued from ourselves, that is just complete idiocy. The fact that they've attacked us, and I think it is crystal clear today that this was no special operation. It is a loud and clear attempt to erase our state, to wipe out our nation, the Ukrainians, off the face of the earth. This war today was rallied the people. It's there for everyone to see. In the south and in the east, people are protesting, people are fighting and not giving up their cities, paying the heavy price with their own lives and the lives of their loved ones. Make no mistake about it, we'll keep defending our home soil, defending ourselves. The fact that we have nuclear power plants in our country aggravates the situation. Should any nuclear facility be mishandled, there would be very serious consequences for all of Europe, including Belarus. And it won't matter if the nuclear disaster becomes the result of direct military attack or the ensuing inability to prevent a severe nuclear accident of some type. We all are in clear and present danger. Any military action near a nuclear facility is a potential threat. I cannot understand why this is not widely understood. You'd think that in the 21st century, a blatant attack on a country that is in the heart of Europe, striving for democracy, building toward great European values, it's just unthinkable. And I would like to say in my address to the world that we need help. We need help. If everyone is silent today, I'm not sure that tomorrow some other European country won't be in our place. You said you need help. Did you mean your country? And specifically about nuclear technology and security, is there a need for assistance in that area? No, we don't need any help in that area. We can handle it ourselves. But the potential threat is there for everyone. That's the first thing that the world needs to understand. And yes, I believe we absolutely need strategic military assistance to help us fight against what we're fighting here today. Last question. I read somewhere that Ukraine initiated the process of disconnecting, don't you know how to phrase it correctly, its electrical networks from Belarus and Russia. What is the status of that process right now? Well, we are now completely disconnected from the joint power grid of Belarus and Russia. But did it happen before or after the war began? We started this process before the war. Certain testing procedures have been carried out. The plan was to join the European power generation system. We were working toward that goal. It was supposed to happen a year from now, right? Shortly before the war started, we disconnected from the Russian power system for tests and inspections. So now our power system is running in autonomy. Do you send energy to Europe? As far as I know, not at the moment we don't. It is my understanding, though, that our grid is not fully linked with Europe yet. I see. How self-sufficient is Ukraine in terms of its energy supply? Will you be able to stay afloat even if the Zaporizhzhia units go offline? Will that be a problem? You see, this question of energy self-sufficiency is very much related to the current consumption levels in the country. It depends on a number of key power consumers like production plants and factories that are in operation. A lot of different factors are in play here. The situation is very fluid. It changes practically every day. If today the grid can handle it, tomorrow the circumstances might make it impossible for us to manage it anymore. It could happen if, say, large power lines get blown up and a number of other factors. It's just impossible to answer this question definitively. I see. Thank you very much. Well, thank you too.